All right, welcome into the Fantasy Football Fire podcast. We're going over the Sunday games and actually also the Thursday night game, which we're going to start with. Jets-Browns, what did you take from that game?
Sam Darnold is not good. Baker Mayfield is good.
I totally agree. A lot of people struggle with Isaiah Crowell or Bilal Powell. Which running back would you take week in and week out?
Week in and week out, I would definitely take Bilal Powell. But, I mean, you want to try to talk about game script, but right now, any week, any team can win. So, if you could say that the Jets were ahead, then I would be taking Crowell. I like him in the red zone. But, yeah, Powell will never be game scripted out.
So I do agree with the game script part of what you said, but I actually think Powell might be used in the red zone a little bit more. I know Crowell was used more in the Thursday night game, but Powell did come up with a bit of like a injury on one of his runs right before they got into the red zone. He actually got them there. And I think it's just smarter as an offensive coordinator to have a receiving threat and running threat at your running back position in the red zone so the team doesn't know what you're doing. But, yeah, we'll see. I mean, he did have the 2 touchdowns, so it is hard to argue. I do also want to talk about Mayfield. He gives everyone a boost. He makes Carlos better, Landry better. He makes everyone on that team better. And I actually think a good pickup out of this game for this week would be Antonio Callaway. He was a pickup last week. If he didn't get picked up, I think it's now that you need to do that because Mayfield loved him in the preseason. They had a great connection. And Josh Gordon's gone, so he should be second, maybe third in targets on that team. And I think they're going to be a little bit better offensively. What do you think?
Who would be second if not him?
If I would, maybe Njoku. Either Njoku or possibly Duke Johnson. We haven't seen him really at all this year, but, maybe they start bringing him back into the game script. But I think it's safe to say him or Njoku would be second.
I hold Duke for another week or two, and then I consider dropping him.
Yeah, Duke is definitely somebody I would say is safe to drop either this week or next week as well. Carlos Hyde. I know you're big on him. Why don't you say something about Carlos Hyde?
I think you got to start him every week. At the beginning of the year, we worried about all 3 backs. How many carries he's going to have. At what point Nick Chubb is going to overtake him. Nick Chubb's a year away. Carlos Hyde is the back to own this year. We're talking keeper, then you can talk Chubb all day. But right now, this year, Carlos Hyde he's the guy.
Yeah, and to hop off that, I definitely agree with you. Hyde, he did sign a 3-year contract, but it's basically all front-loaded on the first year. So they basically paid him for a 1-year contract. After this year, they're probably going to cut him. But that's great for this year because that means that they're going to use him and make sure they get all the money every drop they can. So I think he's a lock for RB2 numbers for the year. Right now, he's actually second in rushing attempts in the league, so that's great. And also touching on Landry real quick, Mayfield came in and he was hitting Landry like crazy. Landry had 15 targets in that game, and I'm pretty sure maybe like 4 or 5 were from Tyrod. The rest were from Mayfield. There are also more quality targets from Mayfield, and he had, he's got great hands. He had that nice snag that he almost fell in the end zone with, but he fell a little short. But yeah, I love Landry, and not only did he have 15 in that game, but he's 4th in the NFL, and he hasn't had any touchdowns yet, so the touchdowns will come with the targets. I think he's a very safe wide receiver 2, especially in PPR, maybe close to wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I agree. Last guy I'd like to touch on there, one of my guys I've been kind of talking to you all year, is Quincy Enunwa. What do you think of his performance the first few weeks now?
I definitely think he's the best receiver, the clear number 1. Darnold clearly loves him, has great chemistry with him. I think he's a must-start in PPRs. And the thing about this, though, is we're saying, Hyde and Enunwa are must-starts, but a lot of these guys were drafted really late. And a lot of people have higher names that might not be performing as well, but it's hard to sit them. Do you have any advice for people in those situations?
Yeah, right now, I'd follow the targets. You might have Robbie Anderson, you drafted him, and Quincy Enunwa, you might have picked him off of the waivers, but right now he's tied for 10th in targets in the NFL. right there with guys like Devontae Adams. You know, I mean, the worst week he's had has been 8 targets, and you know, for a wide receiver 2 or a flex, you know, and what he does with those targets, you know, he's a safe play. I'm playing him every week.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I agree with that. I would also say, just for the people out there that drafted well and play the waiver wire great, a lot of people have these guys as their like 4 or 5s. If that's the case, I would try and get 2-for-1 punches in right now. Because Enunwa is great. He's a great starter. But if you have like an Enunwa, John Brown, a Tyler Boyd, Mike Williams, you know, there's a bunch of those guys. If you have a couple of them, I think you could do a 2-for-1 for someone who's kind of needy at the position, and maybe you can get back a good running back or maybe even a good receiver if they're desperate.
All right, I could find myself on either end of those trades depending on my team.
Yeah. All right.